Hey, welcome back. If you've been following along, you should have a scene that looks just like this with a dragon and a background here. And if not, go ahead and go back to the previous section and just get caught up real quick. What we're going to do here is add in some physics to make our dragon actually feel like he's flying. We'll make him jump up and down and just fall down, all kinds of fun stuff. To do that, we need to first select our dragon. Now, there are a couple different ways that we can select him. I can click on him here. But if I click in the middle, I may accidentally click on this main camera or the background or something else. Sometimes I get them, sometimes I miss. The other option is over here, this blue dragon option. In fact, watch when I click on him. The blue dragon actually got selected. And if I click over here on the forest background, you'll see that it's selecting the forest. This is our scene hierarchy. This actually just shows all of the objects, or sprites in our case, that are in our scene right now. And it lets us click on them. It also shows our camera though. So our camera is not a sprite. I said all of the sprites, but it's all of the things, all of the game objects that are in our scene. So we've got a camera, a blue dragon, and a forest. Now I want to select this blue dragon and make sure that I'm on the rect tool right here. And then I want to rescale this dragon. So if I grab the area here, I can just size him up and down. Another option I have though is if I hold shift, when I'm scaling him, notice that he'll keep his ratio the same. So he'll stay in the same square shape. And I want to scale him down to, about this size. But take a peek over here. Notice the scale value for X, Y, and Z of the transform component of this dragon has changed. It's at 0.05. Let's scale him back up. I'm going to hold shift again. And as I scale him back up to his original, he was actually at 1.0. I can even right click on this transform and hit reset to just reset him right back to a centered default position that has a scale of 1, 1, and 1. Now, I want to shrink this guy down again, so I'm going to hold shift and get him back down to that 0.5-ish range. Or I could just go over here and type 0.5, hit tab, 0.5, and 0.5, although the Z value doesn't matter because we're flat. We're not in a 3D world. In a 3D world, this Z value would matter here. It doesn't matter really. I could change it to just about anything. Usually I just leave it at 1. So now we have a dragon that's a little bit better size. He fits in our background a little better. And I want to move him over here. So I've just grabbed him and dragged him right up here. And I'm going to release. Now if I hit play, we still won't see much, right? We'll just see a dragon kind of floating. But at least he looks the right size. Now I want to make him fall. It's time to add our physics. We've already selected our blue dragon. And we've looked at the transform a little bit. We even have this sprite renderer here, where we can see the sprite on it. But if we look down a little bit further, and depending on your screen, you may have the sprites here expanded, or you may have to scroll down a little bit, but just hit the add component button. And then we want to look for physics 2D. We're building a 2D game, so we need to make sure that we use all 2D physics components. This is one of the few things that varies from 2D to 3D games, is that we need to use special components for the 2D physics system compared to the 3D physics system. Now, we can use them interchangeably in the same project. We could have 2D and 3D physics in a project, but usually we just end up with one, and in this case, we're just going to use the 2D version. So select physics 2D. And then you see we have a whole lot of options, mostly colliders, some joints, some force things. But I want to scroll down until I find the rigid body 2D. This is kind of the key physics component in Unity. So if we're building a 3D game, we'd have a rigid body. If we're building a 2D one, we'll have the rigid body 2D component. This will handle us hitting things, bouncing off of things, dealing with colliding and killing our player, all kinds of fun stuff. So let's, now that we have this added, hit the play button and see what happens. There we go. Our dragon is kind of flying. He's falling at least, right? Now let's see what that looks like in the scene view. I'm going to take my game view. I'm going to drag it and just dock it side by side just so I can see what's going on here in both views and kind of pull it over. Look, I can't actually see my dragon though. When I pull it over like that, I have to pull it all the way over here to see the dragon. So I want to show you this little drop down here, this free aspect ratio drop down. Now, normally our game view defaults to free aspect, which just means that it's going to scale to match whatever size we make the window. In our case, we want to force this to a specific aspect ratio, something that we would actually play in, because we're going to scale it way down in this tiny little window. So I'm going to hit 1920 by 1080, and now I can see what my game looks like in a normal aspect ratio. So if I were going to play on a phone or something like that, this is more what it would look like. So with this side by side, I'm going to hit play one more time, and I'm just going to watch the dragon fall. Now, you don't have to do this. I just want to show that, hey, he's just falling down, and he's going forever and ever. He's way, way, way gone. And if we look at his Y position, you see it just keeps dropping. Pretty cool, but not quite a game yet. We still need to make him jump. So let's zoom back in on this dragon. And again, you can have the game view side by side like this if you want. You can pull it off to a separate scene, or you can just dock it right on top of the scene view. So just pick whatever works best for you. Just make sure that you remember you can switch back and forth between these two pretty much at any time, but your game will only run as long as the game view is visible. Now I want to give our dragon something to hit. So I'm going to take our stumps and just drop this onto the scene, and look at that. If you look closely, you see that we got all 4 of the stumps there, and it's probably not necessarily what I want. I'd really like to be able to use an individual stump one at a time and just have these kind of going by. So I'm going to delete this. So with the stumps selected over here, I'll just hit delete on the keyboard and it'll remove it. Now I want to go select the stumps sprite down here in my project view and look over at the inspector. Again, make sure that the texture type is set to sprite. If it's not, just change it. And then look at the sprite mode. By default, a sprite is set to single. That means that it has one sprite on the image. This, however, has 1, 2, 3, 4 different stumps on this one image. We use this, it's called a sprite map or a texture atlas, and we use these to shrink things down or minimize the amount of texture memory that we have to use. Also, just to simplify sharing these files. Now, to change it so that we can actually use each part as a sprite, though, I need to change this sprite mode from single to multiple. So just select multiple and hit the apply button. Then we need to click on the Sprite Editor button right here. This should give you a little dialog. This may pop up on another window if you have multiple monitors. Just go look around. It may have popped up somewhere else. Once you have it up, though, you'll see you have a Sprite Editor menu and a Slice menu. Select Slice, and then hit the Slice button right here. And you may have noticed these little white boxes appeared. They're very, very hard to see, but there's a little white box around each one of these sprites. And if I hit the Apply button here, close this out, I should see that my stumps now has an expand icon, and I can expand it and see each individual stump there as a separate sprite. So I'm going to take stumps 0, and I'm going to drag it right here just underneath the player. Now notice that the bottom part is kind of off the screen, and if I go to the game view, that's fine. It looks like just a stump kind of sitting there. So I'm going to hit play and see what happens. Let's see if our dragon hits the stump or not. Nope, didn't hit the stump. It fell right through. The reason for this is that we haven't told our dragon that it actually needs to collide with anything. To do that, I'm going to select the blue dragon, and we're going to add another component. Remember when we looked at our physics 2D section here? So I had a filter there. Just clear that out. Go to the physics 2D section, and look here at all of these different collider options. We have a box collider. I'm going to add one real quick. Don't do this yourself, though. Notice how the thing just kind of outlined right there. I'm going to hit Control-Z to undo it. Let's try a different one. Let's try Physics 2D, and I'm going to add a circle collider. Notice the green circle that appeared around him. Pretty cool too, but not really what we want. We want a collider that matches up with his sprite. So I'm going to undo again with Control-Z. I'm going to add component, go to Physics 2D, and I'm going to scroll down until I find the Polygon Collider 2D, and watch the dragon sprite. Notice all of that green around him. That is essentially his hitbox. If you've ever played a game that has bad hitboxes, where you shoot somebody or you think you hit something and it just didn't really register, a lot of the time it's because the box here doesn't necessarily match up exactly with the image that you're seeing. Sometimes that's just for performance. If it's a networked game, sometimes it's not 100% dead on. Sometimes it's a bug. In fact, the first time I built one of these, it was very buggy. The hitbox was backwards, and my kid complained until I looked and actually dug in and fixed it. So sometimes you just got to check these and modify them. Now we can actually edit and modify this collider. We don't need to, though, because it came out pretty perfect, I think. But if you hit the edit collider button, you see that we could have a weird hitbox where, oh look, his horn actually hits when it's really far out for some really bad reason because a guy dragged it out there. Anyway, I'll stop messing with the collider and we'll keep it good. And then let's hit play again and see what happens. Fell right through again. Now, hopefully, you're kind of thinking about why this might have happened and maybe considering that the stump might need a collider as well, which is exactly the case. So I'm going to select the stump, and we don't need to add that rigid body. Notice that this has a sprite renderer and transform, but not the rigid body. We do need to add the collider, though. So we'll go to Physics 2D, and we'll find that Polygon Collider 2D again, and then we'll hit play. Check it out. He's crashing and rolling away. Let's see that side by side too. Let's get the game view up side by side with the scene view. And I'm going to select the stump so that we see the collider there, but I'm also going to hold down the control key and click on the blue dragon so that we have both of them selected. So now I can see the collider for each of them, and I can hit play and kind of watch as those colliders interact and see how that looks. There we go. Look at that. It's kind of a perfect little collision. He's rolling down and falling to his death. I think that's pretty neat, and we're partway there. We're getting close to actually having a game. I think the next step is going to be to make this guy jump. So we're going to write some C# code. It's going to be a lot of fun and make this thing a whole lot more interactive. So if you're having fun with this, make sure that you like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff, or just drop a comment below and let me know. And if you have questions, of course, drop those below too. And continue on to the next section when you're ready. We'll start making this a fun, interactive game.